to on a great high. We have Deanna Bolio with VTA. And so we're just going to go ahead and get started. We have a small enough group even to introduce ourselves so that Deanna knows who's here. I'm going to save Deanna for last. So get ready for popcorn style, which drives me crazy at this point because I lose track of the people. But let's get started. I'm Diana Batista. I'm with Lucille Packard Children's Hospital Stanford and chair of the committee. We are going to go with Scott O'Brien.
Hi, I'm Scott O'Brien. I'm a commercial real estate broker, former chamber board member, and former chamber board chair. So nice to be here today.
Jonathan.
Good morning, Jonathan Weinberg, member of the Los Altos City Council.
Abby.
Good morning, all. There's activity behind me, so I'm going to stay hidden from view. I just want to say hi. I'm delighted to be able to listen to today's presentation. I own the hotel in downtown Los Altos, and transportation is a major issue for my people. So thank you for putting this one on.
Great. Sally.
Good morning, Sally Meadows, Los Altos City Council. Council member, yes.
Michael.
Michael Murphy, local rolfer and member of the chamber.
Penny. Oh, and you're muted.
Penny and Roy Lave, and congratulations to you council members and Kim for sitting that out last night and remaining coherent. I have to admit I didn't make it through the whole thing.
I love it. Simon.
Hello, everyone. Simon Pennington. I'm Associate Vice President of Community Relations, Marketing and Communications at Foothill College. And as you guys know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of our students use public transportation. So I'm very interested in this topic. Thank you very much for making this space for us all to be together.
Thank you, Simon. And full disclosure, I'm on the Foothill Deanna Foundation board, so I'm really so excited to have Simon here. Isabel.
Hi, everyone. Isabel LaSalle from Assembly Member Mark Berman's office.
Scott.
Hi, good morning. Scott Hunter, Executive Director of the Los Altos Village Association.
Great. You know, I was telling you yesterday, I'm on a 2-day conference, and they do this kind of style as well. And I'm like, I feel like I'm back in elementary school, like waiting to get picked last in basketball, which makes me feel kind of sad, but thanks all for playing along. So our speaker today is Deanna Bolio with VTA, Valley Transportation Authority. It's going to talk to us about VTA, who they are, what they do, who they serve, and anything else she wants to throw into the mix. So because we all like titles, Deanna is the public communications specialist. So if she can't do it, no one can. So Deanna, thank you so much for being here again, and the Zoom is yours.
Okay. Is there a way to share my presentation?
Yes, Kim will give you access.
Okay, great. So like Diana said, my name is Deanna Bolio. I am a public communications specialist, and I work in the community outreach and public engagement department at VTA. So we call it COPE, a lot of words, let's shorten it up. So my presentation covers kind of a variety of different topics pertaining to VTA. I tried to make it relevant to this specific group, so I hope you find that it is. And then I will be happy to take some questions at the end. Or it's actually a small enough group, I could probably take them through, but let's see how this goes. Can everybody see my screen? Great, okay. So my presentation outline, and we're going to talk about who we are, what we do, the benefits that VTA provides. We'll talk about how we're funded. Climate and sustainability, obviously that's super important to a public transportation agency. I'll talk about some of the local transit and highway projects in this area. I'll talk about how COVID-19 has impacted us and continues to impact us. It hasn't gone away. And then, like I said, a Q&A at the end. So what does VTA do? When people think of VTA, they probably just think of bus and light rail, but we're actually involved in all matters of transportation throughout Santa Clara County, really. So in that blue transit section, we also operate paratransit for the elderly and disabled who can't use our general services. In that green construction area, we build transit facilities. We built the Milpitas and North San Jose BART stations recently, and we also are involved in highway improvements. There's a lot of different highway projects that are either in construction right now or intended to be in the next couple of years. And then in the red area, we do some planning and funding. So we help fund other programs, bicycle and pedestrian programs, trails, local street and road repair. And then we're also involved in land use and transportation integration. So the VTA structure, we're governed by a 12-member board of directors that's made up of local city or county elected office holders. Our current board chair is Glenn Hendricks of Sunnyvale. We have 5 board advisory committees made up of members of the public who make recommendations to the board, and then 5 policy advisory boards. So things like our bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee, governance and audit, administration and finance committees. We also have a citizens advisory committee that helps define proposals before they go to the board of directors. And I believe that they're actually currently looking for new members. It's a 13-member committee. So if you know anybody who you think might be a good candidate, please send them to our website and they can learn about that application process, because we definitely want a full committee and as many different opinions and points of view as possible. So VTA has a new general manager as of July. That is Carolyn Gonat. Our previous GM, Nuria Fernandez, now works as the administrator for the Federal Transit Administration in DC. So Carolyn joined us in July. She's not new to VTA. She was in 2019, she left to become the executive director of the Utah Transit Authority. But before that, she was actually at VTA for 23 years. So she knows our area. She's been the chief BART officer, chief development officer. She knows our organization inside and out. VTA and local communities, that's where I get to talk about my team, really. There's 7 of us in our community outreach and public engagement team. Currently 6, actually, 1 on maternity leave. So 7 people to kind of manage outreach throughout the entire county. And we serve as a community liaison between our board of directors, also our planning departments and our engineering departments and the general public. So we provide informational presentations to the public, whether it's a more informal one like this one, or a public hearing or environmental scoping meeting. Those are required for certain projects. We inform the public about construction impacts. Are we closing lanes? Are we fixing light rail and jackhammering at night? We know that construction is an inconvenience, but we don't want it to be a surprise. So we do a lot of work on our channels to make sure that people know what's coming up, whether that is a mailer, social media, general media, sometimes literally knocking door to door to make sure that people know what's coming up. And then we engage the public regarding active studies or projects, whether we're looking for comments, ideas, just general public participation. I'm currently working on a central bikeway study in Santa Clara that has had 3 rounds of public engagement. So we get feedback, we take it, we turn it into something else, we go back and say, this is what we do, what'd you think? So it's been a very participatory process, and that's what we like to do. So our department has been impacted tremendously by the pandemic. We're used to being out with the public, talking to people, and then we kind of all got sent home. So it's been a learning experience. In some ways, things have kind of opened up in a greater way. If you don't have to worry about transportation or childcare, and you can join a meeting from your living room, it can be a little bit easier. And at the same time, there are people who just don't want to spend another hour in front of their computer, and we get that too. So we're just trying to learn and be flexible as we go along. So I'll talk a little bit more about our VTA services. We are the primary public transit provider in Santa Clara County. Caltrain goes from Gilroy to the city. BART now comes into Milpitas and North San Jose. Amtrak goes into Santa Clara, but in general, for people who want to get in and around Santa Clara County, VTA is it. These are our core transit services, so bus, light rail, and paratransit. Sorry, I lost one of my notes. There we go. So these numbers are pre-pandemic, so 85,000 weekday boardings on the bus, and about 27,000 weekday boardings on light rail. Our newest buses are all electric. I believe we have 6 currently in our fleet and I think our order was for 10, so we should be getting more at some point and rolling them out pretty soon. And then paratransit services are provided for people who aren't able to access our traditional services. And there's an application process for that, which you can see at myaccess.vta.org. In general, our network of bus routes covers 3,300 stops. We actually did an audit of them last year as part of a different project. So we're all over the place. The VTA benefits everybody, really. We do a lot more than just the public transit. We also are funding a partner for Caltrain and other recent transit providers. We do local highway improvements. We work with bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements, and that includes both kind of working with people on education, bike education, and also actual lanes and trails and things of that nature. Paratransit, and then we also work on transportation and land use planning. And so we're trying to figure out how we can build safe, walkable communities, really. We'll talk about funding. So there are 4 general sources of funding. There's local sales tax revenue, there's regional and state grants, federal grants, and then fares. And the money collected from riders, that fare box ratio actually only accounts for about 10% of the cost of a ride. It doesn't cover very much. So we depend heavily on the funding from other resources. And voters in Santa Clara County have kind of stepped up time and time again to support measures that fund transportation and mobility. 2016 Measure B was the last big measure that people could vote on. It was approved by 72% of voters in Santa Clara County. And it funds our transit operations, Caltrain improvements. I believe that was mostly for grade separation, local roads and county expressway work, our bike and pedestrian program, this corridor study for State Route 85. So that's just a general overlook of the entire 85 corridor and figuring out what we can do to improve mobility there. And then BART Phase 2, which would run from East San Jose to Santa Clara and covers downtown. So that would be 4 new stations. Measure B, 2016 Measure B was held up in court for a while. A court upheld it in 2018, and now we're seeing a lot more Measure B projects rolling out. I don't know if you've been to the Matilda area in Sunnyvale, but that was the first big Measure B project. 101, 237 and Matilda Avenue, called the Matilda Monster because it was a mess, and it's a little bit more cleaned up right now. So regional, state, and funding partners, the Bay Area Metropolitan Transportation Commission, California Transportation Commission, and the state legislature, excuse me, and then the recent funding initiatives from 2017 and 2018. And most projects have a mix of funding sources. It's a little from here, a little from here. And it all kind of comes together into a big pot. I want to talk about transit-oriented development a little bit because I think it's pretty unique to VTA. I don't think most people think of housing when they think of transportation. So VTA enacted a joint development program in 2005, and the board amended it actually several times since then, most recently in 2016. And it allows for transit-oriented development on some of our underutilized real estate. Often this is a park and ride lot near our VTA light rail stations. Not as many people are parking in them as we thought. And if we can use that space in a better, more productive way, that's what we're looking to do. So we've got 25 properties throughout Santa Clara County. VTA would retain ownership of the land and just let people develop on that land. And the goal is to maximize the economic value, get some revenue from that, create a vibrant community that's near transit and allows people to access that quickly. and enhance our VTA operations through ridership and infrastructure. So the benefits of transit-oriented development, they would provide some affordable housing. We know that there's a huge market demand in this Bay Area for more housing. We'd like to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. People who live within a quarter mile of transit use it way more often. It's just, simple, getting there easily and saving time. So we want to discourage vehicle dependence and congestion by having those options available to people nearby. Talk about sustainability. So VTA is committed to creating a greener and greater Santa Clara Valley. It's one of the things that we have a sustainability committee or sustainability team, I should say, of VTA employees that meet monthly, and they've been meeting for 10 years. So it's something that we've actually started a long time ago. It's not necessarily new. And our board of directors in February of 2020 adopted a resolution declaring a climate emergency and said we need to figure out what we can do to reduce gas emissions and reduce congestion. So it became something that the board was really wanting to get involved with and kind of emphasize that change. And at the time we were planning to hold a climate summit around Earth Day, and then COVID hit and that got sidelined. So we didn't actually get to hold that climate summit. But what we actually do have coming down, right, is that we recently received a grant from Caltrans, a Sustainable Communities Competitive Grant that allows us to develop a climate action and adaptation plan. And that plan, we call it the CAP. We love acronyms. The CAP will identify some specific actions that we can take to minimize the contributions and make long-term plans to affect long-term climate impacts. So this, I hope you can see it okay. This is a shot from our fiscal year 2020 sustainability report. That report's online if anybody's interested in reading it. But it shows our short-term and our stretch targets for these 6 different indicators. So our short-term by 2025 and our long-term by 2040. And these goals, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, air pollutants, reducing our building energy, reducing the energy used by our fleet, all of those buses and light rail trains, reducing our potable water use, and diverting some of the waste. So the climate action adaptation plan that I mentioned on the previous slide is going to be used to develop specific actions and items that we can do to reach these targets. It's nice to have a goal, but you got to have steps to get there. So that's what that plan is going to be doing in the next year. And you can read this report on our website. It highlights how we're doing with obtaining some of these goals. Some of the indicators like the building energy and water usage, we're exceeding all expectations. And some of the other ones we're on track, but it's a little more guarded. So we have to kind of keep on that and develop some more strategies. Let's get local. Let's talk about transit in Los Altos. So there are 3 routes that serve Los Altos. There's Route 40, which goes to Foothill College from the Mountain View Transit Center via Bay Shore. So it's a little bit more circuitous when it kind of goes up this north area to hit the Googleplex. Recently in September, it was expanded a little bit with the start of fall. I believe Foothill's on quarters, right? Fall quarter. And so now it operates until 10 p.m. It didn't previously operate that late. And then Route 52 also runs to Foothill College, but via El Monte. So this is a little bit more of a straight shot. And then the 3rd route is 51. It goes up Moffett Field, or it starts at Moffett Field, NASA Ames, and goes to West Valley College via Grant. So it's, I don't have to tell you that there aren't a ton of transit options in Los Altos. It is a balancing act to juggle coverage versus ridership. Do you cover the most ground possible, or do you go where the most riders are? And when the 2019 new transit service plan was adopted, VTA went with a 90% ridership model. So most of our resources are being spent where a lot of the people are, packed pretty densely and going around downtown and East San Jose generally. We hope to see kind of further development to increase density and activity along some of these corridors. That would drive up the ridership, and that would justify, reallocating resources to giving that more frequent service. I do realize it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. When more people ride, if it was more frequent, and so it's always a juggling act, and it's difficult. But yes, Kim.
Deanna, may I ask you a couple of questions while we're on this topic?
Sure.
I know there was a route that went along this map here, Foothill Expressway, to our Rancho shopping center and served the Andronico's grocery store and the other merchants there at Rancho. That route went over to Sunnyvale, so it was a mostly east and west sort of route, and that was eliminated, I want to say maybe 2 years ago. How often is there like a relook at some of those routes? Is it possible that they might be coming back? And do you have any smaller shuttle types of services rather than the large bus? Because I think that we have some areas in Los Altos, just from say San Antonio station straight south to downtown, that would really benefit our local merchants to have a route that would go there and then extend on down to Foothill College, back to downtown if we had that kind of access. So
okay, so for your first question, I believe the new transit service plans are every 5 years. So we would be in year 3 of that, and a couple years away from implementing a new one. On the shuttle aspect, I actually get to that a little bit on my next slide. Good timing. Okay. So a first and last mile solution. So the best first and last mile solution is obviously having a dense area so that people don't have to walk a mile. But one option that we're seeing other cities actually use, so it's not VTA, but it's funded by VTA, is people currently running an on-demand shuttle service. So kind of a subsidized Uber for cities. And so Milpitas, Palo Alto, and Morgan Hill all applied for funds using VTA's Innovative Services Grant Program. So these are 2016 Measure B funds that were approved for them to kind of launch these new on-demand shuttles. So the picture here is actually a rendering from Milpitas's proposal. And so that's being used to kind of solve some of the first and last mile issues that people might be having. So if that's something that the city of Los Altos is interested in, they might want to apply for that in future routes.
So the city applies to the program. Is it an annual application?
I believe so, but I would have to double check on that.
Okay, definitely interested, Deanna. So please, we'll talk more about that.
Absolutely.
Deanna, I have a follow-up question on this.
Sure.
Same two things that Kim just asked. I think Route 23 was one of the ones that was eliminated.
We have a 23.
Oh, you
so
do
it
have
might
it.
be something else in the 20s.
So 23, I think, still comes to South Los Altos. Is that correct?
I want to say it ends at Deanna, but I'm not as familiar. I'd have to go.
Oh, okay. I just thought there was one more that touched the south end of Los Altos. The other
check on that.
The other question was, years ago, my wife and I cared for her father who had Alzheimer's, and we relied on a service called Outreach.
Yes.
Can you draw some comparisons between Outreach and your current paratransit? How are they similar? How are they dissimilar?
They're pretty much the same. Outreach was a contractor, and now they've been replaced with Access. But the application process, I think the qualifications are all still the same. Any other questions before I get down? Okay. So now I'll talk a little bit about kind of nearby highway projects. I'm doing a little kind of past, present, and future. So past was the 280 Foothill Expressway ramp improvements. This was done, started in April of last year, finished in November. it actually impacted fewer people than we anticipated because people were at home and not commuting. So we were able to do that pretty quickly. And we just widened the northbound off ramp from 1 lane to 2. So that was less weaving. And then we improved some striping, some signing, and some street lights. So that was one thing that I can say that we've done in Los Altos in the last year. Express lanes are coming to 101, so they'll run up the corridor. It's currently scheduled to open in early 2022. It's this Burgundy F that's actually going to be run partly by VTA from Sunnyvale to Palo Alto, and then partly by the JPA in San Mateo that are going to take it over in Redwood City. So ultimately, it's going to be about 13 miles of express lanes. And that just uses dynamic pricing to allow a single occupant to pay to use what was previously a carpool lane. And then future, this is a ways off, but I included it because I thought you guys might hate this area as much as I do. US 101, San Antonio, Charleston, and Reinsdorf. So the goal there is to widen US 101, add some auxiliary lanes, make it a little bit easier for people to merge on and off, modify those existing on-ramps and off-ramps. So right now it's in the PAED phase. That stands for Project Approval and Environmental Document. It's where you see a lot of the preliminary engineering, analysis, environmental investigations, traffic forecasts, all that stuff. So it's a ways off. Construction wouldn't start until 2026, but I drove off of Reinsdorf yesterday and just thought, oh, I hate merging here. So I thought I would bring it up. And now we'll talk a little bit about how COVID-19 has impacted us. Before COVID, like I said, we had about 100,000 boardings when you combine bus and light rail, and our fare box recovery was about 10%. And most of our revenue from sales tax, or most of our budget came from sales tax revenue. When the shelter in place came in last March, boardings went down 77%. Paratransit went down 85%. We're talking about, the elderly and people with disabilities and, immunocompromised people, and they were not leaving the house really, which makes sense. We started doing rear door boarding to protect our operators. So if you're entering the rear door, you're not paying cash, you're not using your Clipper card. So we weren't collecting any fares. And then from sales tax, people weren't spending. If you're not working, you're not spending money. So sales tax revenue was down about 40 to 60%. And we know that based on the models we had from our economic advisors. Fortunately, the Federal CARES Act came through and we were able to recover some of our losses. But we will have a lot of work to do going forward to restore our service and revenue. Some of the safety efforts that we had going on are mandatory masks. That started in March of last year. It is still mandatory. You are not able to ride VTA without a mask. Initially, we were doing social distancing. We had blocked seats. We were doing rear boarding. A lot of our buses, when you actually separate people by 6 feet, we had buses that could only fit 4 people on them. And so then there were essential workers trying to get to work were being passed up because the bus was all full. So that was something that was changed last year. So we're no longer doing that. We're not blocking seats. We have instituted fares again, but we are requiring masks, and we are still doing daily detailed cleaning and sanitizing at all of our bus yards. And our operators also are kind of more shielded now. So what does that mean? So here's what ridership has looked like. Our light blue line at the top was our pre-pandemic area, over 100,000 riders a day, dip in the summer when people aren't going to school or on vacation. But other than that, pretty consistent. Dark blue is where you see the bottom dropout. That was March of last year. So we're talking under 30,000 riders in some certain months. And so orange is where we are today. It's the last 10 months. I don't have November numbers quite yet. So we're doing better, but it is a long way to go. We've got some work to do But we are, committed. We're committed to providing public transit and the service, or public transit service for our communities, and we'll continue to do that. So that's where we are. Oops.
Deanna, may I ask one follow-up question on that slide?
Mhm.
So do you think the delta between where we were and where we are now, is that because fewer people are working and commuting, or they're using other methods of transportation?
It's both. So there's a lot of people who are still working from home, who are just not commuting. There's a lot of people who have options and have decided they don't feel safe or they don't feel ready to go back to public transportation. So there, it's both aspects there. And then also, we didn't operate light rail from May until September after the tragedy at Guadalupe. So that has depressed some of the numbers there in the summer.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. So that is what I have. I encourage you all to visit our website for information on any of this. Our customer service department is available if you have questions about routes or route trip planning, things of that nature. And if you have kind of bigger, broader kind of new transit service plan questions, that would go to our community outreach department. I will say that the email is probably a little bit better than our hotline just because we're in and out of the office so much these days, but either way, someone will get back to you. We'll make sure that happens. And I'm happy to take questions. I'm going to put out a little bit of a disclaimer ahead of time that we are a big agency and a lot of our work is siloed. So I might not have the answer, but I promise I will take it back to the right person and I can follow up with Kim or Deanna and make sure you get that answer.
Great, thank you so much, Deanna. That was super helpful, very, very informative. If anyone wants to ask a question, if you wouldn't mind raising the virtual hand so I can see it, or just type, speak up, because I can't see everyone just right now. But Deanna, redistricting is around the corner. We're going to have new supervisory districts, we don't know exactly what kind of map is official. How's that going to impact VTA, do you think?
About redistricting?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I'm actually not sure. We kind of, our board rotates. People don't tend to be on it for more than a few years. So, we always see new faces. And so if we get people who are, kind of have different transit interests, we could see different projects become priority, but that's a good question.
Oh, Simon, go ahead.
Thank you, Diana. I actually have two questions, if that's okay. The first might be a very difficult one to answer, and I understand that the history on this is fraught. It is my understanding that BART is planned to go to Santa Clara. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Has there, to your knowledge, been any discussion about finally realizing the dream of BART from the 60s and having it circle the bay?
I don't know of any talk about that in any kind of near future. I think a lot of people see, BART getting to Santa Clara where it connects to Caltrain. So people consider that the actual circle.
Okay, yeah, it's still very, very clunky, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
And okay, thank you. And the second question is, obviously, for about 20 years, there's been a demographic shift in our area, and obviously COVID has exacerbated that. We're seeing a lot more people moving out the area. Speaking from a community college perspective, the community colleges across the state, colleges across the country are experiencing enrollment declines. People are moving. Have there been any discussions within the context of the VTA about kind of coming to terms with those changes and what those might look like long term for our area and how those would impact transportation? Obviously, the move is quite understandably to more density in terms of housing, and obviously there's legislation to support that. Just wondering if that's been part of the conversation too.
That's a good question. We have a kind of 2040 vision plan So that was put together a while ago. It would be interesting to see how it would be updated now post-pandemic and whether there are those shifts being accounted for. I don't know that they have. I haven't read the 2040 plan in a while, to be honest. And so I would have to see what kind of demographic shifts they talk about there. You know, at the time, it was people coming in. So we haven't really discussed people actually leaving yet. My mother works at Santa Clara University, and it's kind of the same thing about, you know, whether people are going to be coming to campus. And so, yeah, it'll definitely be something that should be covered going forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Sally, Councilmember Meadows.
Yes, that's Sally. I answered to that among many other adjectives. So thank you, Deanna. Very helpful, very interesting presentation. So one of the question, it's a general question that comes to mind, and I think we touched on a little bit when you were showing the routes through Los Altos. And you talked about a 5-year route planning strategy cycle. That might, how would you describe that? You talked about a 5-year routes something.
Yes, so we started planning for the last transit service plan in 2017, I believe, is when actually a lot of the strategies were put in, or the theories about coverage and ridership were all put into place. And then it was a little bit postponed going into implementation because of BART. So much of it was tied to having bus routes serve the BART station. And then when BART got delayed, the new transit service plan obviously got delayed. So I believe that, you know, all that planning and, you know, they love data. They're going to look at ridership. They're going to look at where people are, where people are going. There's a lot of community outreach done with the new transit service plan. There's a lot of opportunities for people to weigh in about which routes serve people best, which routes are inefficient, so, you know, I believe we're a couple years away, but.
And I apologize, I didn't actually, that was like a preliminary question. So that's like a 5-year service plan is what I just wanted to get my terminology correct before I ask my question.
Yeah, we make service changes quarterly.
Okay.
But usually that's, okay, let's just change a couple stops, or let's change this timing. So little piecemeal things. An overwide system kind of haul happens every few years.
Okay, so where I was going with understanding that planning cycle is when you look at the city level, you guys are actually rapid transit, but you're rapid on the scale of things compared to city planning. And so, and our cycles are longer. Let's just talk about the RHNA, the regional housing needs allocation cycle, which tends to be 8 years. We plan for that 2 years in advance. And that's around housing, and it is very focused on transit rich environments. Again, Los Altos isn't the most transit rich, but we have some corridors. So if we're trying to plan, especially looking at your transit oriented development, the changes are a lot more frequent on your end. So it becomes harder to plan if we wanted to. Now, I think you can probably help us understand how the longevity of some of those routes, but if we planned housing and tried to become more transit oriented, but those routes are changing potentially every 5 years, and sometimes they disappear and sometimes they don't. I wonder if there's a way that we can look at exploring consistency, and maybe you actually have that already. As I said, depending on the longevity of various routes, if the route just tweaks and it becomes, 10 minutes instead of 15, or you eliminate a stop sometimes, but then you put it back, that's not necessarily as important as if a whole route, that someone mentioned a route along Foothill Expressway, if that disappears, but we've built that into our housing planning, then it's a very inefficient way to work. So this is a very big question, I understand, but the more we can sort of try to align and have assurances, you have assurances around our plans and we have assurances around yours, so we can actually do better with transit oriented planning. And I don't expect you to have an answer to that. But I just wanted to plant the seed so you could understand from the city perspective, what we might be looking for and you may or may not be able to provide.
Okay. That's really helpful information. I've just taking some notes over here. So Jay Tyree is our service planning guru. And so I will go back to Jay and kind of figure out what kind of things they've done in the past with other cities to kind of plan around future developments, because I know that's something that we take into account. We don't just wait for something to pop up and then make a bus route.
Or vice versa. Can we plan around the transit lines without, by the time we're even
with an
done
expectation
with our
that it's going to
plan,
be there.
it's
Yeah.
changed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me talk to Jay about that and I'll try to get some more information for you.
Thank you.
Kim.
Just piggybacking on what Sally was saying there. Deanna, do you know how we would find out if there is any potential land opportunities along the Foothill corridor or along 280 actually is what I was thinking, where like near Foothill College, where there might be potential for housing development, or how we would find that out?
I'm not aware. I'll try to get some more information about that.
If you can put me in contact with someone in that regard, that would be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the group? I will put a plug in to folks who might be interested in this kind of topic to join the public advocacy group that Deanna mentioned earlier. I sit on the San Mateo County Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Committee, and it's just a really great way to learn about projects and to kind of speak for your fellow public folks or fellow residents. So I think it's just a great way to get involved. I'm not looking at you, Kim, so I don't think you need any more committees to join, but you might.
No, but I think it might be really, yeah, it might be very beneficial for our community to have chamber representatives in that capacity. So I'd love to discuss that.
Deanna, what's that called again for public? What now?
It's a Citizens Advisory Committee. Yes. So
thank you.
I think actually it might not be on the front page anymore. We just actually wrote a blog article talking about how we're looking for people. So if it's not on the front page, it's on the second page. But yeah, there's information there for anybody who's interested.
Great. Dan, I hope you are open to being invited back in the future at a future meeting. I think transportation, and especially public transportation, is such a topic of interest for various folks. And I don't think we've ever really had VTA before, at least prior. I can't remember. I mean, the long timers might know, but it's just a great way to continue the dialogue within our communities and VTA. So last call for questions or comments. Deanna, did you want to make a final statement before we let you go?
Sure. I just wanted to thank you for having me. It was good to be here. And yes, we're definitely open. If it's not me, someone else on my team would be happy to come. We love getting the opportunity to actually hear from people. So, getting away from our desks a little bit and getting away from our planners and actually hearing what people outside of the agency are thinking. So,
and I'm just going to put in a request. If there's anything that you think the public should know, maybe new routes, whatever meetings, send them to Kim, and we can definitely put it on our website to get the public more involved. So just think of us as a resource.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I will follow up on a couple of those things, Kim and Councilmember Bevins.
Great.
Thank you, Deanna. I really appreciate it. Excellent presentation. I think we all learned so much, and we record these sessions as well so that we can share them by email to our members. They can come back and watch. So we'll definitely have additional viewers that will be able to benefit from the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Kim, any announcements from the chamber?
I do have a list. Just wanted to give you a few updates. We'll go back to yesterday. The chamber, Lava, and city, we spent some time yesterday afternoon putting up 55 holiday trees around Los Altos. So you will find them in the downtown business district and at Rancho. Those are sponsored by our businesses and nonprofit organizations, and they decorate the trees for the holidays. There'll be maps included in the town crier, so families can go in and visit those trees on a tour. Last night's council meeting, I don't know if you briefly addressed this prior to my joining the call or not, but was a lengthy agenda. The permanent parklet program, or more permanent, I should say, post-COVID plan for our parklets was approved. That again would go into effect after we are out of the pandemic state. That passed last night 3-2. And then there was a memorandum of understanding for a theater downtown, and that also passed 3-2 as well. Other events going on this month. Friday is First Friday, and so there'll be, I think, 13 bands downtown. The chamber is also sponsoring pedicab. First Friday has arranged for, I think 15 pedicabs to be downtown on Friday night. Pedicabs are the bicycle cabs, so you can ride around, take a look at the Christmas lights. There'll be holiday music and lights on the cabs as well, so that should be really fun. And then also with lava, there's the tree lighting at Veterans Plaza as well. So busy night Friday night. And then Saturday, we have selfies with Santa at Rancho Shopping Center. We have a really nice what I call kind of like small town event at Rancho from 4:30 to 6:30 on Saturday. Santa will be there. We have chocolate mochas, hot chocolate, candy canes, cookies, carolers, other music and things like that. Several of the businesses will have open houses during that time. So I encourage you to bring your family to enjoy that event on Saturday. We're hosting Facebook Live events to highlight our businesses during the holidays. We are working on our next issue of the Los Altos magazine. So if you're interested in advertising in the magazine, at least minimally be sure to contact our office to update your listing in the directory in the back of the magazine to make sure that that's accurate. But we'd love to have your support in our next edition of the Los Altos magazine. And then government affairs related as well. I'm speaking with Mission Trail for a presentation in January, and the Foothill Foundation will be coming back in February in the new year. So we're really looking forward to that. And that's all I have. Anyone else have announcements or comments to share?
Isabel, any conversations with Mark coming in the new year?
We don't have anything planned right now for the rest of the year, but come 2022, we'll get a bunch of those on the calendar.
Awesome. Okay. Any last call for announcements? Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful time with season, and you all get 9 minutes back in your day, which is great because I have a conference happening simultaneously right now. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of the day and see you in 2022.
Thank you, Diana.
Bye.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Deanna. Bye, everyone.
Great to see you. Bye-bye.